share with with I think to some parts of Doreen's class from last week. We talked a little bit about the scriptures that mention walking with God. And interestingly, we were having some of this conversation yesterday as well about the balance between where our efforts end and God comes in and sort of adds to that. And the way that I thought I would address this is through the idea of walking with God. And it says in the Old Testament that both Enoch and Moses walked with God. And it kind of just leaves it there, especially with Enoch. It doesn't say much about him other than apparently he was translated to God and he took him, it seems, and that he was a godly person. Thus, he walked with God. And I wonder, what does that actually mean to walk with God? In life, you have to walk. It's kind of a metaphor for living your life. And perhaps we could say that it means that we bring God with us wherever we go. That whatever we do, we don't do it alone. We depend upon the Lord to accomplish the tasks. And there's a song of Zion that talks about this. It says, "I'll never understand why anyone would walk alone." And so we have this option with us. And I think, if you were to present this to the world, they might say, "I'd much prefer to walk by myself because then I'm in charge and I get to do it my way." And, for me, we like to go hiking, or at least I drag my family hiking. And when we go hiking, my wife always says, let's stop and enjoy the nature a little bit. You just walk off and charge ahead. And I look up and you're half a mile down the trail. And so, that's kind of maybe similar to our spiritual lives sometimes, because if we're going to walk with God, we kind of have to surrender a little bit to where he's going, the pace, and we can't necessarily set that ourselves. And so I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge more so perhaps to walk with someone and match to them than it is to just go off on your own. And I know that's hard for us in spiritual terms too, that we would wait upon the Lord before doing things, that we would check in with him, that we would counsel and ask him to guide our path. And depending upon what the word tells us, what the Spirit tells us, maybe we decide not to do something. Maybe we go a different way. And it's difficult. It's a thing of discipline, to slow down enough that we check in and that we make sure we're not walking alone, but we're walking with the Lord. And, I also think I have to kind of always watch, when we're hiking, I want to make sure I don't fall off the cliff. I want to make sure I'm not bumping into Lynette, when we do walk together. And that at the same time, I'm trying to enjoy the scenery, right? And so it's kind of a challenge. You're doing all these things at once. And I think, why do we need to walk with God? And it's because we have all these things to look at in life and all these distractions and all these possible, destinations that we might pick to pursue. But when you walk with God, isn't he continually course correcting? And that's why we need him, because we always tend to veer off course. I often use the analogy of driving. You might have a brand new car, it's all aligned perfectly, but if you let go of that wheel, it's going to veer off the road pretty quickly. And that's how we are. And so it's like that country song, right? Jesus, take the wheel. Like we need that. We need the Lord uh, to course correct for us continually, and that's why we have prayer and daily reading and church. All these things are course corrections, really. And I think you might say that the Lord is there to sort of challenge us in our understanding and our habits, and cause us many times to think differently, to do things differently. And it's tough because human beings are really a species that learns by mimicking. And so we look at others and we see what they do, and then we mimic, and we quickly pick up skills. And I also think we look back at what we did before and say, well, if it worked then, it'll work again. And many times when we walk with God, the challenge is that we would sort of abandon all of that and say, well, what does the Lord say about how to do this and how to live our lives? And so it's it's something that we have to be very conscious about, and be willing to kind of go by something that we don't necessarily understand. And I don't know how this strikes you, and maybe there's things that you think about in your life that are a constant challenge. You're always trying to get better in this one particular area of your life, but it's just a struggle, and we have to submit to God constantly and ask for his help. And we're kind of, I think it's a little bit like Peter when he stepped out onto the water. When you kind of get away from the areas that are your strengths in life and venture out onto the water, you're going by faith. You're saying, Lord, I don't have the skill set. I don't have the ingrained habits and ability in this area of life. I'm leaping out on faith here, and I need your help. But that's actually what it says to do in the scriptures. And we talked, I think, maybe a little bit about this when we covered some of these. A lot of them are in 2 Corinthians and 1 Corinthians, actually. But in 2 Corinthians 5:7, it says that we walk by faith and not by sight. So here he is. He's telling us, abandon your senses, what you know, what you understand, and venture out into the unknown and into things that I'm going to teach you, and to look after things that are beyond this life. And I think we have to do that sometimes. This life is just about more than surviving in the flesh and accomplishing the things that the world says are important. So as we look ahead to our walk with the Lord, and we think, well, I need to not just get the groceries and care for the house and all of these natural things, I also have to work on developing my character and filling my heart with more love, absorbing more wisdom, acting in a more godly way in my life, that I might be an instrument in the Lord's hands, and that I might be a testimony to other people as well. And a lot of that has to do with me looking ahead and saying, well, what does God's plan entail? What's the next life, beyond this one? And how can I focus myself away from the immediate things of this life and spend more time thinking about the things of the next life? And I think that's really what it is to walk with God. And apparently Enoch got so good at it that the Lord said, well, there's no use in leaving you here because you've really you figured out how to follow me, and maybe you kind of passed the test. So it says, about this unseen power, it says, while we look not at the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen, for the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So there you go. It's exactly what I was describing, in that what we see is temporary, but what we don't see is lasting. And so that's why it makes sense to focus more on the unseen. And it says in John 20:29, Jesus saith unto him, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. And so what is this? What is it about God wanting us to have faith in unseen things? It's perhaps something to mull over this week, but it does seem to be important to God. And we know that it is impossible, according to the scriptures, to please God without faith. And so, I wonder in my life how much I can relate to the seen things, probably most, and how much I do in life I can relate to the unseen things. And is that something in my life that's present? Does that, does the Lord have a seat at the table? Does that make up enough of my life? Or am I maybe too caught up in the things of this life? And so this is important to the Lord. And, I don't plan to go really very much further with this. I just wanted to kind of plant the seed and help us to remember and understand that we have this need to develop our partnership with God and learn how to walk with him and learn how to do the things that he's asking us to do. And they may or may not be naturally occurring to us. They may not be what comes easy or that we're accustomed to. In so many ways, the Lord is kind of stretching us beyond our abilities. Yeah, in 1 Corinthians, it says in 10:12, wherefore let him that thinketh he stand take heed lest he fall. The Lord wants us to walk apparently beside him and follow his lead. He's not carrying us, although sometimes, like the footprints, he does. He just kind of takes over because we just collapse and can't handle it, right? But generally, he wants to set us back down and allow us to walk beside him. So we play a part. We have something to do. And yet we submit that to the way he wants us to do it. And I think it's true for the world today. The world thinks they stand. And there is a day coming in which they're going to realize they need someone by their side. They need to be able to reach out and steady themselves by reaching and grabbing the hand of the Lord. It's going to be the only way for us to survive and to make it through. And so perhaps, just even naturally speaking, but I also think spiritually, it is more important now than most times in past to walk with the Lord. We need him to guide us. We need his strength. And we do need this partnering with him, that we would lean upon him, that we'd lean upon his wisdom to get us through the things that we face. And so, I think I struggle a lot with it. Where do I end and the Lord begins? And at what point do I get a little carried away and I'm trying to pull the Lord's hand? I'm like the little kid who's like seeing a toy in the window and trying to yank the parent towards it, right? And the Lord's like, what are you doing? That has nothing to do with your well-being. And, it's not going to make you happier. And so the Lord, I think, wants us to walk for ourselves, to build those muscles, to put forth effort, but always submit everything that we do ultimately to him. And that's really kind of what I've come up with. It's the best I've come up with in terms of describing this partnership and this joint effort we have with the Lord. it's kind of amazing, really, that the Lord would give us feet and set us upon the ground and say, now walk before me and be perfect. It's basically his charge that he gives, to Abraham. And yet he says, I'll walk with you. Every single time you're not sure how to scale the next part of your path, I'll be here to help you. And thank God for that. So I look forward to what the Lord has in store for us. I'm thankful for the reassurance that he gives us to know that we don't have to go it alone. But I also need to remember very much in my life not to veer off and let go of his hand. I want to be like that song. I'll never understand why anyone would walk alone, because that's the best way. We have this amazing resource available to us of all-knowing knowledge and unlimited strength and unconditional love. If we were going to go off on a journey with anyone, could we pick a better partner than God? And yet, that's what the world is doing, and that's what the flesh often tries to tempt us with. And so maybe the Lord can be more a part of our week this week, more a part of our job, more a part of even the mundane things in life, more a part of our parenting or grandparenting or whatever it might be, right? Maybe I can be more ready if I'm next to God to face the situations that I find in life without fear, without panic. Maybe I can be more ready if I'm next to the Lord to share a testimony, to offer prayer to someone in need, or to just be a good example. Maybe I can be more successful in walking uprightly and living this life to the fullest. The thing that strikes me, I guess, is just the constant nature of this. Do we think of our spiritual lives as I kind of live my life, and then there's checkpoints where I check in with God on Sundays and maybe Wednesdays or whatever? Or do we actually say, no, I never left his side in between those times? The Lord is a part of my life every day. I'm talking with him every day, and I'm enjoying this fellowship and presence in my life on a continual basis. I think that's what it's talking about with Moses and they walked with God. They didn't walk alone. And the joy of it is that we don't have to, that we're not supposed to. We're not supposed to be in this life alone. And I've often felt, even more so perhaps in recent years than ever before, that the world is a lonely place. And, I think Lynette was saying this yesterday, that, as we talk, we talk very much about the things of God. And we were saying, this is a time in which we're going to need to be the comforters for those in the world. I don't know if we recognize that not only is this going to test us, and I feel tested. I feel that while the world is falling apart, while our normal routines are kind of being disrupted, and while the stability that we've enjoyed for so long isn't maybe there as much, I have to somehow muster up the strength to get through those times and not be shaken. But that's not all. I might be the anchor for someone else who has no idea what it's like to walk with the Lord. And how am I going to do that? Keep myself strong and be the voice of reason and wisdom to point others to Christ unless I'm beside him. And so I think that the Lord wants us to get closer to him, to live with him, to, what does it say? Abide in him. That we would make our abode with the Lord and nowhere else, that we would realize that's actually what the Lord wants. What kind of friend do you have that says, come and stay a while, but just for a while, right? It's, what is the joke? Company is like fish, right? It's good up to a few days or a week, but after that, the Lord doesn't look at it that way. You don't wear out your welcome with him. He wants the constant companionship with us. And I personally am looking for ways to embrace that more fully, to be more conscious of God in my life, to invite him more fully in, and to make sure that I go nowhere or do no thing without him. And it's a challenge to us, but it's also a wonderful blessing, and also wonderful to know that he wants that for us, that he offers that to us, and that we don't have to be lonely. In fact, we can be the source and remedy for the world who is lonely. And so more and more we're going to be called upon to be instruments, to be a refuge, to be comfort, to be a source of wisdom. So may God bless you today. I look forward to hearing from each of you, and look forward to your testimonies, how God is working in your life, and maybe even the things that you would like us to pray for. I'll tell you, I need prayer, that I would be more steady before God, and we should band together as the family of Christ and pray for each other and the things that we face. So we'll turn it over now to each of you, and enjoy the opportunity to praise God and testify.
All right, I'm stepping up. I want to say it is wonderful to be able